Hey guys, I want to sort of go over how the officiating is going to work in race and post race, and I want to tie that together with the series licenses, right? So, with regard to the officiating, this is a concept that most people will be familiar with in one way, shape, or form. Um, each of our pro splits, so the top split in each region, will have an official in the race. Now, what you can expect from that official is not to levy justice on a case-by-case basis in real time. That's not going to happen. What they're there to do primarily is to make sure the race goes smoothly so that the experience is good for everyone in the race at the moment. Give you some examples. If there is a server issue, a mass disconnect issue, a memory leak issue, whatever, you name it, the official has the ability to red flag an event, okay, or yellow flag if it seems to be something that'll be resolved more quickly, but usually it would be a red flag situation, and they can stop the race in its tracks and give the people who are affected by whatever issue it was an opportunity to get back into the race. Now, these will not happen lightly, they will not happen often, but if a significant number of people all experience an issue in a short period of time, I'll give you an example, say 5 or more people disconnect within a 15-minute period of time, the race could be red flagged. Now, usually the disconnects happen much more quickly than that when it's going to be on a mass scale. They're going to be boom, 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 boom. It'll be obvious and immediate. The official can take note and stop it. For a race where, let's say it's a second or third split and there's not a live official in the race, a member of the race can jump in the Discord chat where myself or another official will be, and you can let us know that your split is having an issue. We can jump in there really quickly and red flag it similarly. Okay, so we've got a protocol in place to help with a mass disconnect issue that may happen. That's a big part of what the official's job is just to make sure things get off smoothly, right? Second thing is to keep the peace. So if you've got a driver who is using curse words or is just really getting aggressive towards other drivers, either through text or voice, the official can mute that person, and that will happen instantly and without warning, because we want to keep it a peaceful and friendly environment for everybody else, right? And nobody wants to hear it, frankly. The third thing from an officiating perspective is black flags, and the officials are going to do nothing when it comes to black flags. So if you receive a black flag, justified or not, right, it will not be cleared. I want to be very upfront about this. We're not going to make a judgment call as to whether or not the black flag that you received should be cleared. Now, we understand that there are occasions where the black flags can be difficult to avoid, and there may even be a rare occasion where a black flag is impossible to avoid. Those are few and far between in my estimation. Normally they're avoidable by following the instructions on the screen. So if you receive a black flag, do not expect it cleared. Don't ask for it to be cleared. It will not be cleared. That is the entire role of an official in the race. Keep the peace, make the race run smoothly. They may take note of incidents for review post-race. Absolutely. If they find something that was particularly egregious, we can rule on that after the race, even if it's not protested. But by and large, the official will be just there to oversee things, make sure everything's going smoothly. Now, if the official is not levying penalties in race, how are penalties levied, and in what form are they levied? Well, we're not going to apply penalties to the championship points per se, but we are going to apply penalties to your series license, and that license will have a profound effect on your ability to race in either the split you want to race in or at all. So let me show you on the website, so pacificmajors.com. If if you go to the Drivers tab and you scroll down to the license area, you're going to see this is real data from the end of our season last year. And what the license shows is what is a driver's MCPI. This information right here is the most important part of the license. And MCPI is simply modified corners per incident. Now, we have a target, well, I personally have a target of about 75 to 80 CPI for a race as an average. Now, that is a good goal, but necessarily not something that we want to hold everybody to be able to race. So we have two levels of licenses in our series. Number one is a series license. Now, you must have a series license in order to participate in a race at all. And that series license is the requirement for that series license is a MCPI of 30. Okay, so that means 30 corners per incident effectively, plus your penalty points. Okay, so if, for example, in the upcoming race, the Daytona 2.4, we are allowing 40 incidents in the sim before you're disqualified. Now, that 40 incidents is the equivalent of 30 CPI. Okay, so if you go over that, you're going to be disqualified from the race immediately. But that's just the start. So if you have if you get 40 incidents and you're disqualified, it's a 30 CPI. Now, within those 40 incidents, if you have an incident that is protested by another member, so you cause an accident, cause them harm, they protest you, we find that that protest is valid, and we deem it, let's say, for an example's sake, we deem it a minor incident, then that would be a 5-point penalty to your CPI. So instead of having 30 CPI for that race, you would effectively, or instead of having 40 incidents for that race, you would have 45 incidents for that race, and that would therefore lower your corners per incident and dropping you under the threshold for a series license. Now, two important parts here is that the MCPI is based on the six most recently run races in the series, not your six most recently run races. So it's just the last 6 races that the series has run, however many of those you have run. And in order for the CPI requirements to have an impact on you, you must have at least 2 races. So what that means is that if you have just 1 race on the books, we'll use Brett Johnson here as an example. He has 1 race and an MCPI of 365. Obviously, he's well over the threshold, but if he wasn't, we wouldn't be keeping him out of the race. He would have to pick up another race in order to qualify. Let's find somebody who's got one. Here's one. Cody Welker has 1 race and a 16.63. Now, he's in danger. In his next race, he's got to have a very high CPI in order to get this above the threshold, but so he would need to get to 30. Now, in order to have a pro license, which you see all these folks do, you have to have a CPI or an MCPI of above 50. Okay, so we expect a cleaner race from our pro split. We expect a more car control from our pro drivers, therefore higher CPI requirement. And again, same things come into play there, as you need to have at least 2 races, and it measures the last 6 looking backwards. So obviously you can see all these people are people who raced in our series last year, and these are anybody who raced in the last 6 races last year, and they all have CPI data to go on. For them, once we have completed this first race of the season, the CPI requirements go into effect, and so they will all have to have above a 30 to race in any race and above a 50 to race in the pro split. So what that means is that if you qualify for the pro split on time, but your series license doesn't allow for you to race there, you can't race there. So your license is very, very important in the major series. And so if something happens to you on track and you feel like it should be protested, this is how it would impact the driver in question. And we hope that this is a subtle but effective way at curbing some bad behavior. Now, the penalties. So there you go. This is what that looks like. If you want to check out the license levels, anybody who races in the first race will be included here in the days following the race. But if you want to see what the penalty points look like, you go to the rules, And here you have it. So if you are protested, or if you protest someone, here's a potential outcome. So if you protest somebody and we find that it was a racing incident, no penalty is going to be levied against anybody. So nothing will hit the license. If we deem that it's a minor incident, meaning there was harm done, but the injured party recovered fine and there weren't other people involved, we may deem that a minor incident. That would be a 5x hit to your license. So again, you think of 5x just like you would like 5 off tracks, right? Or a car contact in an off track in iRacing. It works exactly the same way. That's why we say the X at the end. Chat abuse. If we have to mute you, you're going to get a 5x for chat abuse. That'll be something that the official does report on. If you're in a split that doesn't have an official and you would like to have somebody, you'd like to protest somebody for chat abuse, this is where that'll come into play. Now, if you protest somebody frivolously, meaning, look, it takes a lot of time to review the protests, and we want to make sure we do a good and thorough job. So we don't want to be reviewing hundreds of protests at the end of the race. So if you protest something that is that just doesn't hold up, right? Where the person clearly is not at fault, and it should be obvious, and you sent that protest in just because you were angry that you got wrecked and you were looking through the red mist, so to speak, we're going to assign that 5x to you. Okay, so this is our way of saying, be sure you want to protest somebody before you just send it in, right? Don't just hope that it might resolve something, because it won't. It's going to hit you with a penalty. 5x wrong number in the session. Now this should not come into play. All of our sessions, at least in my mind's eye, are going to be in league, which means we assign the numbers for you. Starting with the race week coming up, you will notice when the official practice would begin in the league sessions that your number is there, and nobody else should be able to get your number, because we will assign everybody with a number, season pass holder or not. But should we have a race in hosted, for whatever reason, we'll announce that in advance, and we'll remind everybody to please set your numbers in the paint shop, because people pay for their numbers, and that's part of a season pass, and we take it real seriously. So make sure you've got your numbers set in the paint shop ahead of time. A 5x penalty for not showing up for an event after the grid assignments are complete. That's a big one. Because we require advanced registration, number one. Number two, you have to put in all this time practicing, and we know who to grid based on all that information. And so our history is really good. It's excellent in that when we set a grid up, a super high percentage, 90+% show up, right? And we want to make sure we keep that going. As a matter of fact, we would prefer it to be closer to 100. So if you need to drop out of a race, that's okay, right? If you sign up for the race, don't feel like you can't withdraw. You can. You have all the way until grid assignments are done, which is the day before the race, to withdraw. Okay. You can. The other way to withdraw is simply you don't complete enough laps, right? If you don't complete a qualifying time or enough laps, you won't be grid. You don't have to withdraw. But if you complete the minimum requirements, qualifying time and the number of practice laps, and something comes up, towards the end of the week and you can't make the race, please let us know as soon as you can, so that we don't grid you, because that'll have an impact. It'll have a cascading effect on the grid for everybody else. If that just doesn't work out, right, for whatever reason, an emergency happens, we get it, and you have to withdraw after the grids have been done, it's going to be a 5x penalty to your license. Again, not the end of the world, but again, we want it to be a deterrent for that happening. Major incidents, 10x. So if you cause an incident that had a major lapse on your part, right? Something that was avoidable, should have been avoided, impacted a number of people, we could possibly consider that a major incident, and it would be a 10x license hit. Again, that's similar to 2 car contacts and a loss of control, 2 car contacts and 2 off tracks, whatever. You get the idea. It's quite a lot of points. And the last one would be our stiffest penalty, which is a 20x and a DQ, and that would be for intentional contact. So if somebody protests you and we deem that the contact was in fact on purpose or retaliatory, You will receive a 20x license hit, which is probably going to take you out of pro, and a disqualification for that race, which means you'll earn no points for that race. If that happens twice in a season, you'll be suspended for the entirety of the rest of the season. You don't want that to happen. Now, one way that you can increase your MCPI is to run in the support races, which run a week before, and they'll run at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Atlantic time, and don't have the other conversions for Sydney or London off the top of my head. But there are 2 times on Sundays. You can only race one of them, but there are 2 support races each Sunday before the race week, so 1 week early, right? Kickoff of race week will start with practice sessions and support races, and you can use those support races to improve your MCPI. Now, the good news about the support races is they can only help your MCPI, they can't hurt it. If you are a driver who drops below that 30 MCPI threshold, you're going to be on probation, for 1 race. Now, that means that if you're under 30, you can race the next race, but you're on probation, and if you don't get your MCPI above 30 during that race, you are then suspended from racing, and the only way to get your MCPI up at that point would be to run the support races, which you're welcome to do. Would recommend anybody to run the support races in general, just as a way to increase your MCPI and to have fun, right? It's a way to kick off the week with a fixed setup race just for fun. It's on the same track as the Major Series race every week with different cars, something fun. We got the Roar coming up in here just a couple of days, which should be a lot of fun. So support races are a good way to increase your MCPI. So that is how the officiating is going to work in the races. That is how the officiating is tied into protests, and that is how the protests are tied into penalties. Now, if you do want to protest somebody at the end of a race, you simply send an email to officials@pacificmajors.com. You're going to want to include the clip, the replay clip, obviously, and explain to us what happened, right? So who was involved, and why did you feel like it has deserving of a penalty? All right, and that's that. Thanks so much.